Hey, lemlisters! I'm super pumped to be joined today with Ryan Stewart, managing partner at Webris. Ryan, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
So for those of you who don't know Ryan, he's a marketer with over 10 years of experience. He's been helping top companies such as Best Buy, Target, etc. And he has also sold a few of his business companies that has been growing and scaling. Ryan is also an expert when it comes to acquisition, cold email, and also Facebook ads. So today we're going to talk a bit about all these topics. Is that okay with you, Ryan?
Yeah, fire away.
Awesome. For those of you listening, please let us know in the comments if you can hear us well. Also, make sure to ask your questions during the live because we want this to be super interactive. I'll have a chat with Ryan, ask him tons of questions to extract all the value I can from him. And if you see a thing that I'm missing, or if you want to ask other questions, really feel free. So we're going to ask basically and start with the first step, when it comes to acquisition, which is good research and targeting audience, which I think are 50% of the job when it comes to doing cold emails. So how does your game look like when it comes to really identifying those customer profile? And I'm sure you've done this for hundreds of clients. So if you can walk us through your process, it would be pretty dope.
Yeah, so we actually don't do it for clients anymore.
Oh, okay.
The reason is because it's too much work.
Okay.
The cold outreach gets a bad rap for being spammy, but it's spammy when you don't put enough time in up front to understand who you're trying to communicate with on the other end. I did just release a free training, just if anyone's interested, got to plug it real quick on how we do cold outreach to generate leads. Nice. But to boil it down, it's really cliche Pareto's principle, but 80% of the results come from the work that we do up front, meaning our main goal is to build a small list of people that we know are qualified. Qualified meaning they're not going to give us a price objection because they've got a certain number of employees, they're doing a certain amount of revenue. All this information you can find online via LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Built With is also an incredible tool to do research on companies because you can find out what kind of tech stack they're running, what platform they're running on. So depending on what it is that you're pitching, for example, if you're pitching services, it's really good to know what type of, if they're running on Demandware, if they're running on WordPress, if they're running on Joomla, because you can cater your opening outreach email to that point, coupled with the fact of not only the tech research and the company research, which is where a lot of people stop, but the personal research. If I'm trying to get in contact with a person, we collect personal data points on that company. What are they? Can we find what they're tweeting about? Are they tweeting about sports? Are they on Facebook talking about their family? Or what are they sharing on LinkedIn? Right? I mean, we really want to try and hyper focus our research on that person and really building it's not even building a persona. It's just, can we figure out who this person is so we can speak to them properly when we're contacting them? Because a lot of people just make the assumption that, they're an e-commerce website, they must need SEO, blah, 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 et cetera, whatever. And they'll just blast out emails, and it's a really shitty thing to do. Yeah. As opposed to saying, okay, this e-commerce company, they've got 50 employees, so they're qualified. They're running on Demandware. We've worked with plenty of people who run on Demandware before, so we've got the case studies, we've got the results to speak to them, and we also know the ins and outs of that platform really well. So why don't I send them an email finding maybe one or two issues on their website related to Demandware just to break the ice. And then again, also speaking to that person, who they are and the communication style preferences, what have you. So it's a lot of work. This is why we don't do it for clients, because we're spending our time really building a list of just 10 people a week that we want to try and contact. And it's not just that 1 week. It also goes over a long period of time to really, again, have the conversation and communicate with that person to get them to the point where they can even become a lead.
Nice. So for you, it's really about ultra personalization, focusing on the person, using tools like Built With to extract all the technologies they're using and leveraging it to basically tailor-made your approach in order to get a much better reply rate.
Yes.
Nice. That's nice. That's nice. And regarding the way you segment your list, because you mentioned, for example, e-commerce, etc. Do you try to segment per industry? Do you try to segment, because you were mentioning that you're really focusing on the person? So is it for you okay, a certain type of person, I'm going to do this approach, or is it more per industry, sector, size, revenue?
Good question. So it depends on the company. Right now, we're doing outreach for really just one company, but we're going to try and also scale up outreach for our training platform, which is going to be tough and a challenge because training platforms are traditionally come off as spammy, coupled with the fact that we're doing outreach. So it should be an interesting case study. But right now, we have a company. It's called Coding is for Losers, which is also a software platform that we're building that runs on Google BigQuery. Basically, what we do is we partner with agencies or e-commerce stores, and we help them wrangle all their data into one BigQuery database, and then we help them build custom reports in like Data Studio, Looker, Tableau, what have you, right? So we know the exact type of, just looking at the very small customer base that we have for that company, we know who the target audience and the target persona is. So what we're doing is, we're just saying, okay, of our customers, 50% are agencies, 50% are e-commerce shops. So right there, that's an easy segment right there. One is for agencies, the other one is for e-commerce shops. From there, what we try and do is extract the unique value of our product and service for those industries. So for example, for an agency, it's a different value prop than for an e-com shop, because the agency value prop is, we're going to help you build a database to manage all across your entire client portfolio. So it helps you to automate and speed things up and not waste time. Whereas e-com, it's like, we're going to help you build reports that give you insights that no other tool or consultant can, right? So just again, by the segmentation that you alluded to, we're able to not only segment kind of like the physical audience, but also the value props within that audience, which then helps us to find the right people and send the right pitch to that person. So from there, we just know, like if it's agencies are pretty much my focus, because I've had an agency, sold an agency, and I have a training platform that teaches agencies. So I have a good foothold in the community. I've done enough kind of the PR stuff where when I send outreach emails, it really helps because I send them from my personal account. We don't use like inside sales bullshit. Like I just don't believe it for a small company like we are. I shouldn't say that's BS, because inside sales is a very valid thing, but for the size of the company we are, we can still dedicate our personal time to this level of growth. It's just more of that one-on-one connection that we're trying to get from that cold outreach. So we segment based on the specificity of the product and the UVP that we're trying to pitch that person. And then on top of that too, just really then going deep on who that person should be in the agency. So we don't go after CEOs and agency owners because they're usually too busy unless I have a personal relationship with them, which we can talk about how I broke a relationship later. But otherwise, we're going after the people who are on the boots and ground doing the work that are feeling those pain points, right? Overloaded with work, tired of pulling reports manually, tired of doing repetitive tasks. Those are the people that we want to try and speak to and then get them to sell up the chain for us to come in. So our content is really built for those people. So we'll find those people. Again, we'll build those data points. We do this all in a spreadsheet. We have an offshore person who handles all the research for us, builds this basically matrix of people. And then we just go in. It takes me 10 minutes of my time to send a templated email over and over again. You know what I'm saying? And they're not completely templated too, which I'm sure we can talk about. They're actually written one by one, but following a simple template. So that's pretty much how we segment. And then we can hyper segment too, just based on the content that we want to send. So we always send some sort of value prop with our opening email. A lot of the times it's like, we build a lot of cool stuff in Google Sheets that we give away for free. So when we identify what that pain point could be, we try and map one of our pieces of content or value props to that to send it along with them. And then sending that email with like an open-ended question, this template is perfect for some of the problems that you might be having. If you have any questions, drop me a note. I can set it up for you. Something like that, right? So again, just trying to dangle them down the line, but that's generally how we segment our outreach.
No, that's cool. And I think you made an interesting point. I think when you talk about segmentation, the first thing you mentioned was when I'm segmenting my targets, I'm definitely going to have a different value proposition. So I think lots of people sometimes, they're going to just segment and they're going to say, okay, this is my target. And they're just going to put a random tag and don't think about the value proposition, where I think it's basically where the most work also remains, because as you said, each target is going to have different pains. You want them to feel the pain and be able to work
off the back of that too, real quick. Sorry, just specific. I'm sure most of your audience is agencies. So specifically for agencies, the challenge is that we're really all selling the same thing, whether it's SEO, Facebook ads, really the UVP comes down to kind of the results and the reputation that you've gotten for people. So if you don't have that, or if you are kind of struggling to do outreach as an agency, it's usually because of that mass approach that you're just saying hey, we do SEO, when instead you should be having some very unique value to like e-com or SaaS companies or local companies that you've worked with, and matching that results that you've gotten to your segments. So if you're doing outreach as an agency, you should be segmenting based on, again, it's all about them. It's all about that person on the other side, who they are and how we can add value to them, not the other way around. Not how can we get this done quicker and generate leads. It's how can I provide that person value, right? How can I build a relationship with that person? How can I get that person to like me? So when you start asking yourself those questions as an agency, you can better align your pitches and your value props to those segments too.
Yeah, very true. And we actually have a question from the audience, multiple, but I'm going to start with one from Santiago. So what are the top 3 ways to give value to e-commerce brands to have them book a discovery call?
Good question. I don't work much with e-com, to be honest with you. So if you work with e-com, these are some of the things that you've got to know. This is another thing that I find too, is that so this, just a quick story before I answer that question, Santiago, but going through this kind of relaunch and rebrand of my partner and I's company, Codings for Losers, I'm really digging back into kind of our UVPs, in constantly realizing how much I don't know and how off base our targeting was beforehand, right? So this is something I think that agencies don't focus enough on messaging at all, and kind of like their unique value. You should be continuously feeding this back in to understand basically who you've been working with, what they've been telling you their pain points are. Like if you've been working with e-com companies for the last year, you should be having conversations with them or your staff about what they're talking about, what they're requesting. That's how you understand really the value that you can add to them, because it all comes from experience, man. If you've worked with e-com companies before, you should know them inside and out. That's just my initial thought on that. But off the back of that, you know, again, just understanding what the problems that e-com companies have. Like if you're working with primarily Shopify companies, you've got to understand the pitfalls of Shopify, right? Shopify has really shitty reporting out of the box, just really bad. It's just very basic. It's meant for beginners. If you really want to get the most out of your Shopify data, you've got to get that data out of Shopify, blend it with analytics, that type of stuff. So you could potentially looking at building like a data studio report that just is a Shopify template, right? For Shopify stores that they can easily plug in their data for. So again, you're asking what the wrong question too. It's not how can I get them to book a consult? It's how can I get their attention? How can I build a relationship with them? How can I get them to like me? So in my training, I talk about how we dangle a carrot. It's all about dangling a carrot to get them to the next stage in the journey. You guys are trying to get them to go from, I don't know who you are, to a client without any sort of nurture in between. The first question you should ask yourself is, how do I get them to respond to my first email? Not how do I get them to become a lead? If you can do that, and then how do I get them to respond to the first email? How do I get them to use the value proposition? How do I get them to use the data studio template? How do I then get them on a call to talk about the template? How do I then, once you have them on the call, then they can become more of like an MQL from there. But again, you're asking yourself the wrong question. It's not how do I get them to become a lead? It's how can I get them to like me, you know, and want to respond to my emails. It's a different
the next step.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I think like what you mentioned, you know, like if Santiago, you're working with e-commerce brand, you should definitely talk to your customers. Doing like interview research, I think is like literally the best way. And then on top of that, I think like what worked well also is really trying, you know, trying to do surveys with potential customers. So for example, if you're targeting e-commerce in a specific industry, you can also like reach out to them and mention a few of their competitors, saying that you've been talking to them about like a specific survey, for example, how e-commerce brand do XYZ. And then, you know, like tell them, I'd love to interview you for like 15 minutes. And then I'll send you a report of all the answers that people have been giving, you know, like, and by doing this interview, you also get like tons of value, and it's pretty easy to do, and people respond usually well to that. We were talking about cold email, and you mentioned like you have quite a lot. So if we look at your garage with all your templates, can you walk us through a couple of examples of how you structure your cold email? Based on personalization, icebreaker, where do you put things, like if you follow a structure or something?
Yeah, so if we're doing, we mainly do two types of outreach. One is link outreach, the other one is sales outreach. For link outreach, to me, it's just all about the exchange of value. So again, same question, but just applied to a different situation. So with link building, we're all about, if you do this, then we'll do this. Because again, link building to me is the worst form of email spam. Like people, again, just like, even like offering to write content for my website, it's not a benefit to me because your content's probably shit. I don't want your content on my website. So figure out a different pitch. You know what I'm saying? And I also don't want to do any work that's not going to directly benefit me. So the same question, you have to understand, if somebody sends you an email, what would you say back? You need to start with that when you're sending your email, right? So for link, again, hey, if you link to me, I'll share it on Twitter because I have 10,000 followers. If you link to me, I'll do this, X, Y, Z. And just being more open and honest about that. But when it comes to sales, it's we always like to send the first sentence should be like some sort of icebreaker that lets them know you did your research, and it's not it's not a template that you're sending them.
Do you have an example of icebreaker?
Yeah. So like, for example, so again, the way that I do outreach, it's much more like, I don't want to spend my time sending emails if I don't think 100% they will respond to me. Right. So I spend a lot of my personal time. Like before I was almost late to this call because I was walking my dog. When I walk my dog, I listen to podcasts, and I'm consistently listening to interview-based podcasts of SaaS founders. Right. And I'm sitting there for an hour, 45 minutes, what have you. And I'm listening to what they talk about, what they do at their company, pain points they might have. Same thing with agencies. I do that. I enjoy listening because it helps me learn, but it also helps me then to make some money off it as well. So I'm sitting there listening to them talking about it. And then I'll just cite that in the opening line. I'll be like, hey, Darren, just heard you on the B2B Founders podcast. What you said about Data Studio and how you use it for clients is effing amazing, period.
Okay. Nice.
By the way, I'm reaching out because we built a similar template. I wanted to see if you were interested in using it. I'm happy to set up something like that, right?
Okay.
It just flows a lot better. Or you don't even go with like the Data Studio pitch in the first one. You just like, hey, Darren, heard you on the B2B Founders podcast. Again, just trying to get them to respond. Just want to say, I really love your work. I'm also in the space, whatever, blah, blah, blah. If they respond, then you can kind of have the conversation. It's really just, it's got to be more conversational than kind of like templated pitches. So that's like kind of my first tip. And then again, to when we always like to close an email with something that's going to elicit a response, open-ended question. Like if you're sending a proposal to, this is a big thing that I found just in terms of upping it, is that like, I don't send an actual proposal until I have them book a time on my calendar to review it, because people ghost when it comes to sending certain things. Like if you send them like, hey, you built a Data Studio template for Shopify, you send it to them, they're like, great, thanks. That's it. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to be kind of planning for the next step. And that's where keeping them in mind in terms of, I said, don't ask the consultation question too early, but you always do want to be leading to that. Like we're not here to just send them free shit and have them go about their day, So the meat of the opening email is something very personal. Let them know that it's not like you actually know who they are and listened. The middle of it is basically like your meat and your pitch. And then the end of it is the open-ended response question, or something that's going to elicit a response, and not in a spammy way, but just, in a way that they're going to reply to the email. Because again, it's all about brokering that conversation.
That's really cool. Yeah. And when it comes to the call to action, because here you're mentioning like asking whether or not, like you should share a resource, which I think is bringing value, but do you often try to really like get them on the call or like video chat
So there's different types of pitches that we use. That's one of them. That's the one I suggest the most. It takes the most work, but I say that I offer that tip now because if you're an agency, again, like you're selling basically a commodity now. Everyone can do it. It's not special. So people just don't endlessly care about your service, right? So you've got to send something else of value to get their attention, broker that relationship. If you do have a product or a service that's unique, then you can go with a much more like direct marketing approach. So again, so this company for Coding is for Losers, we're offering something that people are kind of like, oh damn, like I didn't. So we build like custom tools in Google Sheets. It takes us like a day and it costs like a couple $100 as opposed to like going out and commissioning like a freaking, I don't know, just like a React software database, something like that, right?
Yeah.
So we'll kind of like send them a very unique pitch that's so different. It just, and again, we'll still personalize it, but again, we'll be like, hey, Darren, listen to you on the B2B podcast. Want to let you know we have a template that does just this. If you're interested, we also build these customs. We'll send them template as an example, and then we build these customs. If you're interested, just hit me back. I would love to tell you more. Something like that. And then if they're interested, they'll say I'm interested, So if you do have something that's, again, or if your agency gets really good results for a very specific type of customer, like if you've been only working with CrossFit gyms for the past 5 years and you've got 100 case studies on CrossFit gyms, then I would be emailing every single CrossFit gym in the country being like, here's a link to a Google Drive folder of 100 video testimonials of CrossFit gym owners. Like, we get them results. Our average results is 50% leads in 2 weeks, whatever, blah, blah. Are you interested in hearing more? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you've got that type of like,
if you can back it up, you definitely should use it. And
exactly. So I went the other approach because most of us are selling the same crap, just kind of, you know, at the end of the day. But if you do have like some really awesome, unique value, that's why I always tell people to like niche down in your agency, because it's going to be a lot easier to grow. People just want to work with people they know that they're confident will get them results, you know.
Riches are in the niches, right? There's like the next question I wanna start talking about is like, because right now essentially we're talking about the first step where you've personalized your outreach, it's really precise, but how would you like say your ratio like from automation to personalization? Because obviously like the first email needs to be personalized, but again, like people get busy sometimes, you know, like they open your email, then someone calls, they change tabs and they forget, they're not replying, so you have to follow up. So how exactly, like what's your automation versus personalization ratio, and how do you deal with follow-ups?
So at this current moment, we're not leveraging any automation. We're using kind of like a CRM style method to management, and we're having a VA manage it. So yeah, I mean, that is the biggest downside about not using automation is the follow-up, because it's not even a cliche, but like you really do have to follow up with people. If like they're not, if they're not like super interested right away, then you're gonna have to follow up a lot. It's just part of the biz, and that's probably one of the top reasons why like sales conversations fall through. So it's tough. I mean, that's why you use a tool like yours, because it automates and bakes that in for you. But we just have a VA who's just kind of going through and manually following up. We use canned responses. We have like a couple of systems that we use just for follow-ups. Follow-ups are very easy to use templates. It's just that opening email that can be a bit of a challenge. Although there are ways to automate that too, just by writing that out in the spreadsheet ahead of time and then uploading it as a custom bracket. So we're a little bit kind of off on the automation thing, but again, mainly just because this is also something that we're just getting started with.
Definitely.
Had such a good inbound pipeline for years that we haven't felt the need to do this, but you realize you scale to a certain point on inbound and it's a mixed bag of quality, but like outbound really like cuts the bullshitters out, you know?
And how many times would you follow up? Like, would you follow up until they reply, or at some point you just give up and you just say like,
so that's a good question. Me and my partner David had this conversation like 2 days ago, because I feel like the deeper you are in terms of the time that you've invested personally into the conversation, the more leniency you have with being aggressive with follow-up. So like, for example, if you send your opening email and they respond, and then, but like nothing has really been done except for that response, you follow up once or twice and that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just too annoying and they're just not interested. But if they've gotten to the point where you've sent them a template, you set it up for them, then you can be more aggressive. If you get to the point where like you get on the phone with them, you can be more aggressive. If you send them a proposal, this is my opinion, I think you should follow up until they block you. You know what I mean? Like I just, it's just, to me, it's a personal thing for me. Like if I take someone's time to have a consultation with them, put together a proposal, and then I don't answer their emails, like, you have permission to show up to my house and punch me in the face. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how disrespectful that is to me. It's the most disrespectful thing.
Very true. Because they can just say no if they don't want to. So
it's just like, hey Ryan, great proposal, I'm just not interested right now. Follow up in 6 months. It takes 2 seconds, dude. You know what I'm saying? So like, if they don't, then I feel like you have every right to follow up, because in my mind too, they're not responding because they're interested. They're just not willing to say yes or no at this time. But that incessant follow-ups, like, dude, if you look at real estate, if you look at any sort of like aggressive sales places, they do the same thing. Like, I'm at the process of looking for a house, so I've given my number to a few realtors, and like, bro, they fought, like, I literally have to block their numbers because they text and call me so much. But they also know that that's the only way that they're going to get me to go from, again, a cold lead into actually signing with them a real estate agent. So, and that's with no work being done. So if you've done a proposal and you've gotten to that point, I think you have every right to follow up as much until they give you a response.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's also interesting, but I was curious because, you mentioned like that part where you have the meeting and you're going to send them like an offer. would you sometimes like, because I think I've seen this working pretty well, not sure if you've experienced it or not, but essentially like prior to sending the offer, you know that you're gonna have to like to send it. So you book a meeting with the person in order to review the offer together. So instead of just sending it, you just like say, okay, like let's meet. I need to like, I don't know, catch up with my team, work on the numbers, and let's meet, for example, like in 2-3 days and review the offer together and discuss it. Have you tested both? Just, you know, to avoid that ghosting phase where the sometimes the prospect doesn't really want to.
So the just where we're at in terms of me and my partner David are doing all the sales right now. I'm also doing sales for the Weber State Agency and also doing sales for the Blueprint Training, also doing the marketing. So like we're at the point where we're trying to kind of get a nice outbound sales process built for us, and then go hire a few SDRs to help out. So at this point, putting us on the phone prematurely is it's just too much of a waste of time. So that's also why, like, you know, I've got some videos I'm actually working on now about how I'm rebuilding the messaging on the website, rebuilding all the pages, rebuilding everything, because we want there to be so much education ahead of time that when they get on the phone, like we're putting the pricing and everything on the website. This is, it's like a managed software service at the moment. So it's like consulting plus software. So it's expensive. It's like a minimum of $5,000, you know, like we don't want people to have any sort of ideas until if they get on the phone, then it's really just a matter of really selling them on why us, you know?
Yeah.
So we haven't tested that to this point, but once we get some salespeople in, like I want them on the phone all day, you know?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Because it converts better for sure.
We have an interesting question from the audience. So guys, by the way, like if you want to ask your question, you can just ask them. Vuk from my team is sending everything to me for those who joined a bit later. So question from Braden. What are some icebreaker example if you're not necessarily speaking with the decision maker? Because you mentioned like, so in the example you gave us, you know, like you were chatting about like, okay, I've been listening to CEO's podcast, etc. So they're usually like the decision maker. But what if, you know, like you also mentioned that your strategy is to go after the one who have like the pain, and these guys usually, you know, like they would become your champion, but sometimes it's difficult, you know, to really find like and gather info about them because they don't get on interviews, they don't post on LinkedIn. So what type of icebreaker would you get for these people and really like have them as your champion?
I don't think that's a correct statement. I mean, everyone has social media.
Yeah.
And like they might not be using it for professional reasons, which is even better. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude, Instagram is the most telling thing about any human being. You know, and pretty much like 50% of people have an Instagram profile that's public. You know what I'm saying?
So you'll go for the Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever it is that they're doing, if they YouTube in their free time, like everyone's got something, you know.
Nice.
And again too, like I don't disagree with them that sometimes it is better to contact the CEO directly. Like if you're doing local SEO, yeah, I mean, you don't want to contact the secretary, you want to contact the person who's making decisions. But if you're doing e-commerce SEO with an enterprise organization, or not even enterprise, it's like small to mid-size where they have an internal marketing team, you're not going to go to the CEO or the CMO. They're just going to brush you aside. So I think it depends on what you're selling. If you're doing enterprise, which is mostly what we're focused on now, then you definitely want to go after the team, the marketing managers, the directors, who have enough clout. Basically the way that it works, and I used to work in those organizations, so I know too, is that they find something, they're given a budget, they talk to their person about putting in the budget. If it's not in the budget, then you can like really then push to talk to the person above to talk about, you know, that whole stuff. So, but sometimes you do want to talk to the CEO. I find it hard calling somebody a CEO if it's like a small business, but the business owner, I should say, perfectly fine to talk to them too.
But how exactly, like what type of icebreaker would you use? For example, if if you have an example of icebreaker you've used from things that you find, for example, on Instagram or on Facebook, or that are a bit different, that I've seen you in an interview and I loved what you did.
There was this dude who we sent, of the 10 emails we sent 2 weeks ago, he was a big Detroit Lions fan. He had like a Detroit Lions podcast. We found that on his Twitter profile. So I mentioned in the email about how like the Lions, I thought had I'm a Patriots fan. So the Patriots, the Lions is kind of like inside stuff for people like football, but the Lions have like hired a lot of basically Patriots players because their head coach is the Patriots. Whatever. Point being is that I opened with that. I was like, hey Kyle, sorry you're a huge Lions fan. Like you guys keep stealing our players, like smiley face, you know what I'm saying? And then like then transition more into the business stuff. You know what I'm
So
saying?
really connect on a personal level, whether it's like sports, hobbies, or anything. It's
and I think the key though is to be natural, because we try to offshore this, like the actual pitch writing. And this is a guy who writes content for us, for our blogs, and he's like an 8 out of 10, but like it takes a certain level of, again, like understanding how, like, how do I say this? Like, people communicate in English with each other natively.
Yeah, it's a culture also. Yeah,
exactly.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying? So you can do this very easily and come off like corny and fake and insecure and insincere, which is what this guy did, because he was writing stuff and it was like, it's like, saw you're a Detroit Lions fan, like, woohoo, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't really have the same like personalized effect as saw you're a Lions fan, you guys have been stealing our players,
definitely.
And it's easy for me because I know football, but
the joke.
If it was something about like ballet, I wouldn't go there because I can't speak to that. But also at the same time, like I'm also trying to, like, if I've learned anything in business, is that people do business with people that they like. And if it's like, who you are, if you can find people on the other end who are like you too, it's a big world, man. There's a lot of people out there like you. I say start with that, because it's so much easier to have a conversation. And like, it's so true that people just do business with people that they like. I get clients because people see my videos and they think that that they want to work with me. It's crazy, right? So, that's what I would start with is just knowing who you are, and then figuring out, like, if it's somebody that you don't feel like you have like a kind of an immediate similarity with, and just kind of like segment off that too. You know what I'm saying? So there's different ways you can segment these as well on top of that.
That's really cool. Some really cool insights here. I'm going to switch totally topics and move on to the Facebook ads, because I remember like one of your case study where you presented how you cashed, I think it was around like $180,000 in sales. So if we start from the top, what are the tips and tricks when it comes to Facebook ads and retargeting, like things you've seen working like really well, especially in the B2B world? Because again, like I think a lot of people have misconception when it comes to Facebook ad, and they believe that it works really well, in B2C mainly, but we've seen tons of people really succeeding in B2B. So if you have like, tips, insights, etc.
I actually think B2B is way easier than B2C.
Okay, nice.
Unless, again, so advertising is very similar to sales that we just talked about. The sales outreach is that knowing who that person is and kind of their communication styles and preferences and how you can reach them properly. If you don't have a shiny, unique product, I think that's why agencies struggle to get leads off of Facebook, is because people will just start running ads like commercials. But it's SEOs, agencies. I say SEO, but I'm sure there's other agencies out here. But like, agencies are commodity now, dude. There's one in every corner, So you've really got to work ahead of time to get them in. Like, it's kind of almost a brand first approach on Facebook for B2B, meaning you have to, like, content is cliche, but it's so important. Like, content is a huge nurturing thing for us on Facebook to get people interested. So I can just kind of run you through the funnel that I'm using right now. We're only right now running ads for the Blueprint training. We're spending between like 10 and 14 a month, and generating anywhere from 40 to 50. Nice. So some of that is directly attributed to Facebook, but it's also not, just because, again, like, people also get lost in the metrics on Facebook as a kind of like a direct 7-day window conversion. Like, oh, these ads aren't converting, but like, you're not understanding how the ad is supposed to play in that customer, the process for that person to become a customer. Attribution models online are fragmented. They're really not good. So instead of using Facebook as a purchase vehicle and like, buy now, click the button, like, I know that I'm not going to buy. Our training product's $3,000. So I know I personally
it's not going to be click and sell.
It just doesn't work like that. There's so many times and different angles that I have to get in front of them with different value propositions, different pieces of content to like get them to the point of being like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. I'll hear more, which also means that like, you have to advertise a lot to get to that point. So a lot of people give up way too soon, where they're like, my ads aren't working, it's not getting conversions, or like, my ads aren't working because it's still not impacting our sales. But like, do you know how long it takes to get someone to think you're not a dickhead? And I mean that, like, because dude, like, people think you're a dickhead if you're like, it's just part of the skin, thick skin that you have to develop if you want to do, like, because to me, B2B is works better with a person than with a company. Like, again, like, if you're e-com, your product Should it be enough to stand on its own? If you're SaaS, again, your product's functionality should be enough to stand on its own. But if you're selling B2B stuff that like, if you're an attorney, if you're again, an agency, like there's so many out there, like the difference again comes down to the person on the other side. Like they want to do business with you. So again, the strategy that we take is we run a lot of top funnel ads. We run blog posts. We run to cold audiences, super easy, very basic stuff. You just kind of like define your audience segments. We use a lot of lookalike audiences, but it's very simple. We only use like 3 cold audience targeting. Our lookalike audience for customers. Then I use like HubSpot plus Gary Vee. And then I use HubSpot plus Moz. Just those 3 audiences because I'm targeting agencies. I know if they're HubSpot, then they're an agency. And then Gary Vee communication style preferences allows me to go one way, and Moz is another way for SEO. So those are the only 3 things that we do. We just continuously, I'm actually, after we get off the call, I'm going to go through and refresh our ads, filtering through new blog posts, any new content that we've developed. That's like one campaign that we're running, just clicks to website, landing page views. That's it. And our KPI there is under $1 per landing page view, which we're usually having around like 75 to $1.25, depending on what CPMs are. They've been super low the past couple of weeks. It's been amazing.
Nice. Essentially, like this cold traffic is allowing you to get like tons of people on top of the funnel. And then again, for people who are staying or doing actions on your landing page, you're going to retarget them with specific content. Is that it?
Yeah, I'll get there in a second. So no worries. The other cold campaign that I have is just an opt-in campaign. It's for this SEO proposal template. So basically, like after testing ads for like some sort of conversion point for years, I've realized the simpler the better. So like I had this free trial from the Blueprint. It's too much. I had like a sales training module. It's too much. So I just whittled it down to this SEO proposal template that's helped us generate like X amount of revenue. Video training, 1 video, proposal template, that's it. And then once they get in that, then I try to push them into the free trial of the Blueprint training, right? Just kind of organically. That's been converting really well, around like $2 or $3 per opt-in, which is awesome. So we just run that in perpetuity. That's also a video ad. So just like when people go to the website, we're building an audience. Just like when people watch videos, we're building another set of audiences. So that's cold targeting ad number 2. And then ad campaign number 3 is just short 2-minute videos, like the Gary Vee style videos that you see. I'm just, again, running those to the exact. So imagine we're running all of these to just 3 cold audiences. There's plenty of people in there. We're just hitting them with different value props, different angles, showing them a different side of us, etc. So all those are generating traffic, and it's generating email opt-ins, and it's generating video views. Those now become custom audience. Go ahead.
Just, sorry to interrupt, just to be like super, because I'm not sure that I got this. So you have your 3 audience, and for each audience, you have like the 3 ad sets that are like different type of videos. For each audience, do you have a certain type of video, or is this the same ad set for each audience?
Yeah, same ads, but I'm always running like 3 different ads within the ad sets. Campaign level, it's cold targeting. Ad sets, it's those 3 audience, HubSpot Gary Vee, HubSpot Moz, and then lookalike. And then in those 3 ad sets, I have 3 different ads that we're then testing to see which one performs the best for
each audience. Okay, super clear.
Super straightforward, super easy. And then again, all those are collecting video views, collecting traffic, plus the overall traffic of the domain. We're just building a lot of these, what we call warm audiences. And we classify warm as for videos, having watched 25 seconds or more of video, or having been to the website in the last 7 days. So like very short windows. And this 25% also is in the last 14 days. So we like to keep those windows really short. And the reason we do that is because people open it up, and then Facebook gets really creative. Sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to curse here or not. Facebook is like really creative. The way that they treat audiences, which is great for them, but sometimes not great for us, is they hyper segment on the best portion of that audience based on your campaign goal. So for example, if you could be running the same ad to the same audiences, but if it's clicks to website versus opt-ins, Facebook is basically going to serve those to a different subset of those audience based on what action they're most likely going to take. So that's why we're also running 3 different types of campaigns to scrape all parts of that market, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So that's why we also shrink down windows, because we don't want Facebook to go out and get creative and be like, oh, well, this person like opted in here before, but they saw your video a year ago, so now we're going to serve the ad to them. They haven't really been sequenced in properly. You know what I'm saying? So it's all about recency, which I've been hearing good things about, because now I'm hearing more people when I get on sales calls being like, dude, I just found you 3 days ago. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to what it was before was, dude, I've been following you for 2 years, right? So using that smaller window has been able to our goal of getting new people into our ecosystem, right? So after they go through seeing that cold stuff, we then have two different types of, well, we have a bunch of marketing campaigns. We have, so we call the first one cold traffic, right? It's called cold. The campaigns are called cold.
Yeah.
The next one is we call cold to warm. So that within that cold to warm, we just have more blog posts and more short videos, different ones though, right? And that cold to warm is focusing on people who have watched 10 seconds or less of our previous videos.
Okay.
And that's it. So again, people that saw our previous ads, but didn't watch enough of the video or didn't take action, they just need maybe a little other push. So we're hitting them with a different set of ads, right? And then hopefully pushing them from 3 seconds into 25 plus seconds. So then we go into warm targeting. Warm targeting is people who have watched 25 or more seconds, people who have been to certain landing pages in the last 7 days, etc. And there we're then running, we have a free Slack group that we're running. So we're running an ad to get people to join our Slack group, different value prop. We're running an ad for for our traffic projection tool, which is like another cool tool that we have. It's an opt-in. And then we're running what we call commercials. So this is now where we introduce people to the blueprint. So we've got 4 different types of commercials that we want. One is like a funny video. Another one is me and my partner just talking. Another one is me just talking, just kind of like, again, just introduce people to what the blueprint is and the different value props that we have. And then after that, we then go into hot audiences. So that's 50% more videos. Some other different targeting stuff, that very specific URLs, like if they've been to like a certain product page or the checkout page, they're then getting just testimonials there. So a bunch of different, we have like 50 different customer testimonials that we're running there. And then the final stage there is the hot stage. So that's basically people who have watched 100% of videos, been to the website like a couple of times in the past week. They're then getting a video of me talking about how we can jump on a call and have a consultation. So that's our funnel there. And that's all on Facebook. And then once we get them off, we're generating a lot of emails. We have an email funnel. And then also pushing people to Slack, like as a nurturing point. So like, we don't get too aggressive in terms of like getting people to sign up. Like I said, Facebook is a system for us to get our audience off of there into our ecosystems where they can then learn at their own pace. Right. And again, there's a ton of people that convert off that, but again, people also convert over the long term over this, like the more value that they can get. Sometimes they just get guilted into upgrading. They're like, I've gotten so much value, let me pay. So there's a whole different bunch of like kind of system there. And that's why this training has been running for like 1.5 years. That's such awesome revenue for a training, in my opinion, and the margins that we get off of it, because, the value that we push back into then pushing word of mouth, pushing referrals. We're like just starting to do affiliate stuff now with just a very small subset of people. That's kind of like the next step for this, is letting the community take us to the next point, which then also feeds into our software as well. So we're also building this community, not just we're making money off the front end, but then gradually introducing them to our BigQuery stuff as well as they get more advanced, and turning them into true recurring revenue customers at like ideally the enterprise level.
Yeah, no, that's I think it's really interesting, because I love the way you're using Facebook, to really like nurture your leads at the different stage without like really going after the sales straight away. Because I see a lot of people, like, I've never heard about them, and then I see their like ads on Facebook, and it's like, I'm gonna help you make $1 million, and I'm like, yeah, fuck off, like I don't know you, you're probably a fraud. And and that's quite interesting. I really also enjoy your perspective when it comes to like warming them up with when they call, like trying to warm them up, and then having the action of just putting them in your other funnel, which is either email or Slack, which I think is also like providing tons of value. And then again, like I've got a question from the audience, because I think it's nice because you mentioned it. So essentially, like for B2B ads, do you think it's better to have multiple people from the team show up on ads, or just one go-to person? Because you mentioned that you were doing something also with your co-founder.
Yeah.
And have you seen these ads like performing better versus like just you, or would you say it's...
Yeah, so the ads with me always perform better, but it's because they're built from my audiences, right? This whole training is kind of run like under my personal brand, which was by device. We're starting to push more slowly now towards like brand of the training, but and the way that we're doing that is all cold traffic is running from my page, but all warm traffic is running from the Blueprint page. So we're using multiple pages for that. The challenge with David, my partner, is that like he has one of the reasons why we partner together is because we both have different kind of philosophies on, not philosophies, but we both have different skill sets, but we also both have different audiences. He's very technical, Python, SQL, all that type of stuff, automation expert. Mine more in the marketer and kind of on like more even the beginner to mid experience type marketer. So that audience just gravitates more naturally to me because of the way I speak, the way I teach, the content I'm promoting. So we've been kind of trying to segment. This is what I've been working on this week with the content strategy for that company is how do we take what he's doing, which is very technical, and then also allow me to kind of like carve out a chunk for the marketers, right? That's a little bit more WYSIWYG, kind of like, just not quite the technical stuff that he's talking about. But I always personally think that the more faces you can get, the better. You just have to be able to use like one kind of like key to bring it back to the brand. So if somebody sees an ad with you, they know it's from the same company that as the other people. But I mean, people resonate with people. The reason why I like more people too is because if you have people that look different, it's just little triggers within us. Like people gravitate towards stuff they know. So if you have male, female, people of different races, accents, all that stuff, I think the more you can get out there, the better, because people resonate with different figures differently. So
nice. Yeah, that's interesting. But I also think that the fact that like seeing always the same person is also like pretty effective, as again, like you're getting used to that person. The more you know them, the more you like, last question, because I think like time is running, time flies. But Jonathan is asking, like, what software do you use to actually track the funnel progression?
We build a custom in BigQuery, man. Check us out. We've got a couple of templates that we built for. My partner published last year. He published a Salesforce visualization, which was really cool, like MQLs to SQLs. He just built a Shopify one. We're actually migrating our CRM to HubSpot today as we speak, so we can build more. HubSpot is kind of like the bigger CRM in the space. Yeah, I know. But just in terms of what we want to do in terms of building these templates for people, these data studio templates, and we call them recipes. HubSpot is we use Pipedrive, which is great. It's simple, it's easy to use, but it's not as robust as HubSpot, and just it opens us up. So we'll be publishing plenty more. Make sure to check out codingisforlosers.com now, and in the future, there's a bunch of stuff up there that we'll be publishing for free.
Nice, that's awesome. Ryan, thanks a lot for joining us on the show. Where can people like follow you or get your updates or I don't know, contact you?
So it's Ryan Stewart on YouTube. That's probably my best one. I publish something there at least every week.
Nice.
A lot of trainings, a lot of tutorials. I'm active on Twitter and Instagram too if you want to get to know me as a person. Ryan was here on both of those. If you're an agency, definitely check out the blueprint.training. It's an agency in a box for SEOs, SOPs, templates, tools, everything. And if you're looking for something more robust, if you're an agency, you don't like the reporting software out there, if you want something that's really customized to you, codingisforlosers.com, we help companies build what we call data pipelines in Google BigQuery. Really, really, really powerful shit that will blow your client's hair back. So any of those.
Nice. That's awesome. Thanks a lot, Ryan. Thanks the community, guys, and talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me, guys.